Hello, Homeworthy. I'm Marcus. Welcome to my New York City apartment.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hello, I'm Marcus Teo. Welcome to my home. We're here in the Gramercy area in New York City. I was born in Malaysia, and I went to English boarding school first in Singapore, and I also had spent my formative years growing up between Singapore and London, where I had family. And London was a fantastic space for a child to kind of hone my design eye, because I lived with my family who actually had an amazing townhouse up in northern London, and they had a fantastic collection of Bauhaus furniture, temperature controlled, and I've basically kind of been surrounded by a cross between Bauhaus as well as tropical modernism in Kuala Lumpur. So growing up in all that before deciding to come to New York, to NYU, to study film and journalism. I was looking around. I was moving from a sort of cookie cutter 1960s building, and it's always been my dream to live in a floor through of a townhouse. And there was a long search before I found this particular building, and I found this incredible townhouse that was built somewhere at the turn of the century. And it's been renovated a few times, but there's still amazing touches of the past. To be honest, the one thing that sold the place to me are the high ceilings. I've always wanted a high ceiling apartment, and that's a one apartment requirement that I've not been able to have, that actually has eluded me until finding this place about 8 years ago. The space of it is fantastic because it does feel like a modern loft, even though it's in a traditional townhouse. The spaciousness of it also gave me enough room to kind of create these vignettes that's in my mind, and the collection I've done and collected through the years of photography, of painting, of design objects, and of furniture. I don't think I'm an accidental tourist in the publishing field, but in some ways, I hadn't really completely wanted to delve into publishing, but somewhat or other, I do feel like publishing has adopted me, and starting from W Magazine, I've worked as a contributing editor through the Condé Nast and the Hearst magazine families. I managed to work after leaving W full-time, stayed on as a contributing editor there. I also worked with Vogue magazine as a contributing sittings editor, working on their portraits. I've worked with GQ, I've worked with Esquire, I've worked with Arena, and focused on telling fashion stories. Welcome to my living room. As you can see, it's one large space, but it kind of contains all these little worlds that I've accumulated throughout the years. The first stop is naturally the entryway. This is what I kind of call my mid-century entry area. Right here, it's kind of defined by this credenza, which I've had for about, at this point, 18 years. It's traveled with me everywhere, and it's functioned as a office storage unit, but at this point, it stores cutlery and dining and linens and all of that. So I do call this my mid-century area also because when I was working at Georg Jensen, I had the luck and joy of working with incredible designers and artists. One of my favorite pieces is this particular water jug that's designed by designer Aldo Barker for Salone of 2012 for Georg Jensen. It's a water jug. Put it in water and fill it over there. I mean, the sinuous features are just terrific. One of my favorite pieces, again, from Georg Jensen is the Henning Koppel vase and jug. I mean, the Henning Koppel jug can also be used as a vase. The entryway also has my favorite designer, Viennese secessionist Joseph Hoffman's chair. And this is basically ties the entire room together. Of course, the centerpiece is the gorgeous Takia lamp, one of my favorite design pieces in the world. So next stop is the lounge area. Much time is spent here. It feels a little bit more traditional, if you will, with the Flemish tapestry that kind of is the centerpiece, and this great day bed, which basically I spend most of my time here. That's where I eat dinner in the Eileen Gray table and watch TV. I do like to offset what is classical with something that's a little bit more modern. So with the traditional touches there, I'd like to throw in this Gerrit Rietveld chair. And it kind of creates a little bit more of a mix of something heritage and something new. Over here is a collection of portraiture through the years. One of my favorite things in photography is portrait photography. Every time I look at this wall, it creates quite a feeling of looking into different worlds and different cultures and different expressions. So some of this are works that I've worked from photographers I've worked with. Right at the top there in the Alexander McQueen ballet-inspired outfit is Carly Kloss, one of her very first photo shoots done by David Sliper for W Magazine. To the right of that is Bruna, shot by amazing photographer Blair Getz-Mezeboff, who now shoots for Vogue. One of my favorite portraits, Roger Moore. To the left of that is, the far left of that is Barry White, shot by Christian Witzkin. To the right of that is a portrait done for a W Magazine cover by Karl Lagerfeld. Right over here is Kate Moss, done by Corinne. Because this is a lounge area and I do spend many nights here eating, watching TV, I have the TV here set up on the easel like it's a piece of art. And because much of what I do is not always just hinge back in vintage and heritage work. I do love digital artwork and I love what's going on in the AI world. So I do have the TV set up here, and this is very much where I have also been keeping up with anything from classic movies to YouTube documentaries about what's going on in the technology and AI field. I do like, again, to mix the worlds, what's heritage and what's classic and what's developing and what's new. Now here we are onto the next room. The entertaining space is the living room area. Here I have always loved a good old Chesterfield couch. Maybe it's the colonial English upbringing. Chesterfield always has that solid sense of a men's club. And that's where I start. One of my favorite pieces that I've spent a lot of time searching and researching is Edgar Brandt. He's one of my favorite designers. And Edgar Brandt created the snake lamp back in, I think it was 1918. Don't quote me, I might be wrong about that, but it was an early Art Nouveau masterpiece. It took quite a while to find the snake lamp. And it's funny, a lot of people who come here notice, they're like, are you into snakes? Because they have these sculpture. This is an African sculpture that I picked up in Austin. It does remind me of a snake. And then in this Ilse Crawford bowl for Georg Jensen, which I love, is, again, a classic snake toy. Yeah, I haven't really thought about why that, but here we go. It was a bit of an odyssey in terms of figuring out what I wanted to do professionally. I came to New York with the pursuit of being a film director, a writer, and an actor. Of course, first I had picked journalism as a major because having Asian parents, telling them that I was going to study film was a catastrophe that doesn't go very well. So I told them I was going to NYU to study journalism. This after actually they had expected me to follow the much more professional path of becoming a lawyer, going to England and study law like most good Asian boys do. I decided to change that path, coming to New York. To appease them, I picked journalism as a major, and they were fine with that. And once I got here, I picked up film as another major. I found my groove in publishing. So based on my journalism education, I started writing stories just to pay the bills for magazines in Singapore, magazines in Italy. Through friends, I've gotten connections, and I was able to write fun stories about what happens in New York City. And basically, I went out every night, covered the nightlife in New York City, and wrote about it the next day, and sent it off to magazines all around the world. And that kind of gave me an in into more of a journalistic streak rather than film. And somewhat that continued until I started pounding the doors in fashion magazines. And the fashion magazine career started from there. On the Chesterfield sofa is a melting pot of, again, different cultures. What I do love here is there's a little bit of a Western, Native American influence in this end of it with the print. Over there, it's a little bit more Art Deco with the texture on the satin pillow and the red velvet. Over here is what I do love is minimalism, because we work so much with photography and narrative and storytelling that I sometimes need a little bit of a refresh. And minimalism in art is my kind of reset. Over here is Malevich's famous circle painting. This brings us to one of my favorite and most prized items. It's something I've saved up for many years and looked high and low for it. Obviously, I had mentioned Bauhaus is a big influence, and when I was working in London for an amazing, I guess, fashion entrepreneur, Joseph Etegui, I had learned quite a lot about fashion and design from him. He also has an amazing eye. Back then, one of his favorite designers, Eileen Gray, had all these incredible pieces that he mixed into his store. And the Eileen Gray lacquer framed screen is a design icon from the Bauhaus days. And I don't know the exact year where it was designed, but it's something I've been looking for a while. So when I managed to find the one that was available for auction, I jumped on it and am now a proud owner of it. So it's one of my favorite pieces of all time, because it's ultimately modern and vintage, and also has a bit of the Japanese, Asian lacquer influence to it. So it really is a combination of what I love in design. These Le Corbusier chairs were chairs that I grew up with at my cousin's house in London. And then I have been surfing since 1990, way back in the day. I used to go to Hawaii about 4 or 5 times to surf, and also ditch planes in Montauk. When I first saw that Hayden Shapes, which is an amazing surfboard company, created these marble surfboards, I was like, this is incredible. Again, it's a mix of my favorite things, marble and a surfboard. And it's also so sculptural. And over here is a Chinese teak table, which holds one of my morning rituals. What I love to do here is to light incense every morning. My favorite scent is the Astier de Valette Ulaanbaatar, which has, I think, notes of Indonesia to it. And what I do here every morning is do a little bit of blessings and meditation. I love this incense holder that was created by Cinnamon Projects and Apparatus, and that's my morning ritual. Over here, you'll see quite an extensive collection of books that cover photography, gardening, homes, kitchen, food, practically everything that I'm into, that I've collected through the years. It basically was in a much larger library, and when I brought it over here, I just realized I wanted all the books to really fill up the space, and that's where it sits. But this also contains quite a lot of reference material that I use for my work when I do creative direction, when I create mood boards. It's kind of better than Google, right? And to get to a book, I do love a traditional old book ladder that I can climb up to get to the top of it. Let's see. Voila, a book on dining design. That was a project I was working on. And the idea of just living and dining with books is something I do love. So this is a Prouvé dining table, and the Prouvé dining table where we have lots of great company come by and share stories. Home is sharing. My favorite dining chairs are the Joseph Hoffman chairs, which I, again, have waited long and hard and finally found them, and I'm super excited that they are part of the dining area. So my favorite thing to serve, and actually I'm going to serve that tonight to friends who are coming, so I'm actually in the process of preparing it. My favorite dish at my dinner party is the Peking duck, because Peking duck is also an activity because you have to roll the pancake and put in the sauce and then roll it up. So I do love serving a Peking duck. In terms of the design world, as you can see, this particular Joseph Hoffman chair has been used at Michael Chow's restaurants, Mr. Chow, who is one of my design icons. Mr. Chow had these Joseph Hoffman chairs at the Mr. Chow restaurant in London back in the day, and also in New York and in LA. And it's just incredible how he had been able to pull in all the best design elements, including that and the Christoffel silver, and serve like really hearty Chinese food in these design icons. And to me, that really is a combination of living well with design. And I think this reminds me of eating at Mr. Chow when I have my Peking duck parties. One of my, I guess, requirements when I was looking for the next apartment was a classic fireplace. Unfortunately, this one doesn't work, but it does have the marble fireplace that I had coveted for a very, very long time. Of course, with the fireplace as a mantle, you get a chance of displaying. Some of my favorite pieces are up here. As I said, I kind of like mixing contemporary with the old, and here we have the Martin Margiela Russian doll pieces, and in all white, it just kind of like, again, open to interpretation. Over there is a Daniel Arsham moon. It actually is a scented candle, if you will. Over here is, I'm a big fan of brutalist sculpture, and this is David Umemoto, who is an incredible sculpture artist who does, who's taken brutalist influence and created these incredible little pieces. This, one thing I like about sculpture is making it functional. This actually can work as a cookie jar or a vase. Above the fireplace is a piece of art that I did myself. It's a minimalist painting of a white square. And again, I think from my work, working in photography and narrative and film and looking at so many images, I always like to do a reset, and my own personal favorite artwork has always been minimalist artwork, and I kind of painted this while I was in a space where I was just getting overwhelmed by a lot of imagery, and I sat down and I painted this particular piece, and this basically has set off a hobby, if you will, in painting. I do intend to continue painting after this, so let's see when the next one is. My fondness for marble, obviously the marble mantle, also extends, because I do love, again, a mix of like this much symmetrical line into this marble bust here, which is an amazing find from a friend. He is so French in its way. It's wig, and it's incredible how the work of it is. Now, this looks completely classical, but I think it actually came from a hair salon down in Soho, if I remember the provenance of it. As you can see, I do love marble quite a bit, but people always think that marble is a little bit cold and you can carve it in so many ways, but I also love to offset design with nature. And one way to bring in nature is through floral design and greenery. I am very classical in terms of what I love about flowers, but I'm always much more drawn to bushes and branches and just a big arrangement of greenery. Here we have, actually it's floral design done by a good friend of mine, Seth Johnson, and he basically has taken olive branches and created a bouquet. It's always good to have floral designers as friends because they always come in with like the really good arrangements. We are going to go through my corridor of selected artworks to get to the next rooms with a little pit stop along the way. Welcome to the well-stocked, tiny little Manhattan kitchen galley, because the most important thing here would be menus. So I do order quite a lot of food. I am actually quite a good chef, if I can boast. But because it's Manhattan, we have access to so many great restaurants, so I end up not cooking much. So the Galley Kitchen works quite well for me. What I do quite a lot of it is make coffee and make tea, and also sparkling water. But I do love a good collection of teapots, and again, with design, something very traditional in terms of a Chinese blue and white print, or this incredible Scandinavian design teapot from a much more 60s aesthetic. So yeah, tea is one of my favorite things to make. But food, order, dial it in. The conjoining corridor has actually a gallery of some of my favorite collection. So this here is my first piece of important photography that I bought when I finally had a paycheck that can do it. Favorite photographer, Martin Parr, and this is an image from his series on British beach towns. These two kids with melting ice cream is completely evocative of the time and the period, and also a certain joy about summer. This is a Werner Panton, it's called the Crash, and it's a fruit bowl that he had created for Georg Jensen back, I think, in the 70s or the early 80s. I also think that is a great piece of sculpture when you frame and hang it up. And we're going to walk into one of my favorite quirkier spots, the bathroom. Come on through. Quite classic, black and white, and I do love this floor of circular tiles because it breaks it up graphically. But my favorite thing, which actually has followed me through 5 apartments now, and I kind of bring them to every apartment I am, is the wall of British royalty. Princess Margaret in a bathtub in the bathroom. I mean, literal, right? This I actually got from the Browns Hotel, Churchill and the Queen. I think that is either at Wimbledon, where Charles, Diana, and behind Diana is David Bowie. It's quite a fun shot. Sisters, Margaret and Elizabeth, Prince Edward and Wallace for Philip Halsman from the Jump series. And right on top of that is the Banksy series of 10-pound bills with Princess Diana. And I've mixed this fun royalty series with some still lifes. And being a Cancer Leo cusp, the home is really, really important to me. And where I am, and in my space, it seems to transport me every time I look into a corner, look into a photograph, into the incredible experiences I've had, the people I've met. It's a little not too egotistical to say that I've been really lucky and have met incredible people. And I think each of the objects in this room remind me of a time and an experience and a mostly joyous time. Hello again. Welcome to the second space in my apartment. Come on through. This is the bedroom and the home study. Of course, during the pandemic, it was really important for me to create kind of an office within the space. And I was figuring out how to do it, and I created these screens, which actually has an incredible texture to it, which sometimes I was like, could I be looking at screens all day or staring at my bed all day? But the screens worked out well because of this wood texture, which I do love. Over here is the home study. Part of what I loved was the second fireplace in the apartment. And again, an assembly of little objects on the mantle. One thing I do love, which started a collection, is these thorny objects. Obviously, the what was this? The sawtooth whale. And this is where all the work and creative direction and bill paying happens in my office. On this side is where I do quite a bit of reading. Another piece of Bauhaus furniture, and this armchair has followed me for, I think, the last 25 years. This was bought way, way, way back in the beginning of my collection. This is where I do my reading. Next stop is the bedroom. One of my favorite pieces that I've been coveting for a very, very long time, and it was incredible to find a Hans Wegner valet chair. Took a while to get that. Here it is. Bedroom has incredible light, which wakes me up quite a bit. I always loved a little bit of Art Deco element, and I've been looking for a high-backed bed, and it took a while to find this fantastic piece, and has this great curved profile to the bed. And once again, I do feel like Art Deco has had a little bit of influence from Native American design, and that Pendleton blanket has, I think, hints on Art Deco. Over that side of the bed, of the nightstand, you have a little bit more of a classical element. And here, it's a little bit more of an Italian whimsical design moment with Fornasetti plates, which again has followed me through several apartments. This is a little bit more graphic with the Snoopy lamp. And novels, I actually read. I do some reading before I go to bed. So, and that is the bedroom. Another area of the room is this dresser. So this mirrored dresser I actually had in the middle of the room before I put up these screens and before I set up the study during the pandemic. It was actually much more of a freer, open area, but I do need the office space. But I found good use for it as a dresser over here, with really crucial elements for a gentleman's wardrobe. Lots of sunglasses. A fan is definitely what we need with global warming happening. So here's a selection that goes with every outfit. I also have 3 favorite images: a Jack Pearson art piece on stars. That is Torkil Gunnarsson, who's a dear friend and a great photographer. I did a series of homes and environments of artists, and he was one of the featured artists. That is Pablo Alfaro's photography of the divers in Miami. Behind that screen is basically where the fashion magic happens, but we're not going in there today because it's actually quite a mess. There's a lot of clothing going on since I just came back from Hong Kong not so long ago, so the unpacking and a lot of crazy fashion. I like to think of my home as an experience I want to share with those who are closest to me. My home is a place where I like to share. I like to welcome old family and friends, and also new people that I meet to share the experience. I don't think that it's like a You know, some people think that home is a very private spot. For me, because it's also a combination of experience and life, and I like to be able to share that with friends and family where I've been, the people I've met. It's a place where I could tell stories. It's a place where friends can gather, have an amazing dinner. And I know everyone has a great dinner party, but I love a dinner party because it's a place and time where you can share stories and meet people.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.